Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Morley.
And today, Danny is going to take us on the journey of how he really stopped drinking alcohol. And I think this is something that a lot of people can relate to. If there's one thing that is universal, it is alcohol. It's something that I've never battled with in this lifetime. I think that I conquered it in probably my last lifetime, and I've just always been allergic. And so it's something that I could never relate to. But watching what your career has been before you became a mystical life coach, to seeing your relationship with alcohol now has been quite the journey. And so for anybody at home who's got a drinking thing going on, I really hope this story resonates with you because it's really powerful. And I've been there to witness how you were drinking a little, then you were drinking really minimal, and now it's kaput, nothing.
Yeah, and you didn't even know. We met last year,
right?
And at that phase in my where it was like I wasn't drinking very much. It was like very occasional, but it used to be super regular. At one point in my life, it was every day, without question, and it was really hard on my body. And these are all things we can go into.
Yeah.
So where do you want me to start?
I mean, I think you should talk about just culturally, being raised in a society and in England where drinking is rampant and you guys start really young.
Yeah. Really young. So had my first drink, official drink, obviously was taking sips of my parents' alcohol when I was a kid. But when I first properly got drunk, I think I was 12. And
my God.
And that was it was with my parents. It wasn't not with my parents, and that is very normal in England. It's not super common, but it's not way out of the ordinary. Whereas when I came to the US, I think I was 15 or 16 and I was drinking beers. My uncle was astonished and blown away and not very happy about that behavior. I'm not very happy that I think my parents were allowing that to happen, which that's by the by and a whole nother topic. But started drinking at a young age. It was very socially acceptable. And by the time that I was 15, what I had been role modeled was that it is normal to go to the pub every day and socialize and have alcohol. It is normal to come home and have alcohol with dinner. And then it is normal to drink alcohol after dinner to relax and unwind. And I think within the UK, I live in the US now, it is widely used amongst most of the population to decompress, to relieve stress. And it can be a wonderful tool to do that. It really does make you less stressed. I'm not here to demonize and vilify all use of alcohol. Nothing in this reality is right or wrong. And it's just whether or not we choose to do that. And
abusing it.
Yeah. And I'm finally at a place which I want to get to, of a place of power where it's not coming from force. It's just, I don't want to do this. It's not something that I want to put in my body. And when I was younger, the social norm was, if you're cool, you drink alcohol. And if you don't fit in and you're weird and
Yeah.
So from a teenage, I was definitely trying to drink to fit in, to look cool. I literally remember being at this one party and I was had a few beers and it was a family event. And I thought I was really cool. I think I was 13, 14, having a couple of beers. I thought I was super cool because I was the drunk one. And then the next day I went into my pub where I had to work as a pot washer every Sunday to earn £3.50 an hour. And I was so hungover at the age of 13, 14, that I actually asked to be sent home, which was, when I look back, so embarrassing. There's a lot of shame that I felt, and not from people shaming me, but shame from divine communication from my soul saying, "You, this doesn't align with your highest path."
Mm.
But that didn't stop me, and I carried on to socially drink, and then the physical effects of alcohol really take effect, because couple of drinks and you can feel really good. Now, not everyone does, like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have like allergic reactions, right, Ellie, when
Yeah,
you
like I
drink?
can't breathe. I remember the first shot I took at 13. It was at prom and I threw up everywhere. And then the second time I drank, I did the same thing and I was like, "Oh, I think that I'm allergic to this." And yeah, as soon as it gets into my body, I everything starts freaking out and my throat closes. And so I knew, I was like, "Man, this is not meant for me."
It's fascinating that
But
your
it
body.
makes you feel really isolated and alone.
Yeah,
So I had to really struggle with the fact that like I don't fit in. But for you, it was like a way for you to fit in.
yeah, and this is great. Let's go here, because it was a way for me to fit in, but the connections, like what you were feeling, is a lack of connection
Yeah.
because of the alcohol, right?
Right.
Because it allows people to connect. But what I've learned is the connections that I was forming were through a tool outside of myself, and they weren't coming from a very empowered divine place.
Mm-hmm.
So these connections that I would make, albeit connections, they were superficial, very surface level, and not deep at all. That doesn't mean, I'm not saying, don't let your ego attach this. I'm not saying that you can't form a deep connection through the use of alcohol. I'm just saying, from my experience, the connections that I was making, and especially the friends that I was making back in the teenage years, through these pursuits, they were often not the deep levels of friendship that I built in my teenage years when I wasn't doing drinking all the time and I was just hanging out with my friends. Because you're connecting more from a real place, because alcohol really does open you up.
Mm-hmm.
It is a great social lubricant. And you have a room full of people that have never met, and you give them a few drinks, and all of a sudden everyone's talking, right? Everyone's like, takes the edge off.
Yeah.
Why is that edge there in the first place? And in 2019, I was in India. I was in the holy city of Pushkar for the Holy Festival, where they do all the colors and they throw the paint everywhere. And I was severely depressed at this point. My depression, it was starting to really kick in while I was traveling in Asia. And I remember that it was this period that I started to take antidepressant pills to help me through, and I took one on that, or half a like a antidepressant, something, anti-anxiety medication that day, and I couldn't believe, like, it brought me to a level where I could relax and enjoy myself, and I couldn't believe how these all this Indian culture could party non-stop for like 3 days without a drop of alcohol. And I was trying to like dance and do it with them and do the party, and I couldn't get out of my own mind. I was constantly worrying about what other people were thinking about me. Was I looking stupid when I was dancing? Why do I care? I do care. I made a video about this. Like, I do care about what other people think of me, and I don't want to care. In an ideal world, I'd be able to go out and just be completely mentally, emotionally free, but I'm not, and that's real. And the work that I'm doing now is to find that freedom from within. And I know there is a future me that feels completely mentally and emotionally free. That can go out anywhere in the world and dance. And actually, I'm getting pretty close to that with the dancing in public,
Mm-hmm.
as Ellie could tell you as we walk around. Um, but I do see myself there, like completely mentally, emotionally free. But when I was younger, I found that freedom through alcohol. It was always, and this is what I was role modeled. This is what I was taught. Like, society taught me,
Mm-hmm.
you need to relax, you need to loosen up, have a few drinks. And it's the only way that I learned to connect with people was through alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time that I got to college, I remember saying, like, if you don't drink, I can't trust you. Like, that's really deep, like, programming and manipulation, and like, that's some deep level stuff. I can't trust you if you can't drink. When you show up sober, I feel so insecure about myself and how I'm behaving, and I feel like you're judging me so much because you're not drinking. that isn't right.
Mm.
But this is what I was thinking and feeling through my early 20s, through college.
Mm.
And it's a reflection of the level of consciousness that I was at. It was a reflection of all the unhealed wounds, all of the judgment, all of the inferior superior programs that I had still running there. And yeah, that's why I love this work, because it allows me to see all this now and understand why I showed up the way that I did and start to really heal it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, because I've never drank alcohol, all I've been is an observer of people who drink, literally at every party, everything I've ever been to. And it's always like, oh, I need another drink, or like, I'm really stressed out. I need, let's go to happy hour because I had a really hard day, you know? And at the time, it was so like, I had no idea. I'd be like, all right. But now I see it. It's like, it's one of the biggest ways we escape from ourselves. And because it is so socially acceptable, I mean, think about like how many memes and like how many jokes are about like hangovers and like getting drunk. Like I was at this beach a couple of months ago and I was listening to this group of people next to me talking about like all their hangover stories and their blackout. And they're like all cracking up. And I'm like, this is so acceptable that we don't see how fucked up it really is.
It's so fucked up.
And we use it as a crutch. We use it as an excuse constantly because it's everybody drinks, something you do. I mean, what would the world be without alcohol? I mean, truly.
It would be a mess.
It would be a mess.
Absolute mess.
Yeah.
No one would be able to cope. When I was younger, if you took away alcohol, I would be socially awkward. I would get so much social anxiety. I wouldn't know how to connect with people. Because as I mentioned, like this was the gateway to connection for me. And it was also, to paint the other picture, it was a really beautiful way for me in some aspect to understand and connect to different parts of me, because what it did allow me to do in the past. Now, by any means, I'm not saying that everyone should drink and do this because of this reason, but I'm just saying, like, in reflection, this is what it showed me, was that there is a confident, fun, loving, easygoing person inside of me. And when I have a few drinks, those programs, they just come off. I stop running them. I stop worrying.
Right.
I
Gets
get
you
out
out
of
your
my
mind.
head.
Yeah.
And that's the real me. But the real me, the divine me, the truth of me, doesn't need alcohol to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I feel society has completely manipulated us into taking away our power, to understanding that you, that real you, the you that isn't stressed and thinking about all of these things, the bills to pay, the what am I looking like, how are people, are they judging me or not? These are all things, you know, that we constantly are running, whether we're aware of it or not, in our minds. It just takes the edge off, and then we can enjoy life a little, right?
I mean, when you said manipulation tool, like it really is. Like and not to get political, but like when we had the pandemic, liquor stores were open.
Yeah.
It's like, that is so fucked up.
It's so wild.
It's so fucked
up. Alcohol got classed during that period of time as an essential service. And what?
Yeah.
Alcohol, which is literally poison. Literally poison. They did a study on wine, and for it to be non-toxic, it's 2 glasses of wine per year, spread out evenly over 365 days.
Wow.
To have a non-toxic effect on your body. That's how toxic the stuff is.
Oof.
So if you're drinking more than 2 glasses of wine a year, you're doing some level of toxic harm to your human being vessel that you're in.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to put anyone down. Like, I have done a lot of harm to myself through this substance. I've ran away from a lot of shame, a lot of powerlessness, a lot of pain. And the answer that I found that's worked for me is not to be rigid. This story isn't about stop drinking today.
Yeah.
That's not what we're here to talk about. What has worked for me has been doing the deep inner work. And when we do the deep inner work, it dissolves all of the programs that lead us to doing that certain behavior in the first place. For me, it was this inner critic, this part of me that is constantly judging myself and others. This part of, there's so many programs, there's so many wounds that led to this behavior. It's hard to break down and pinpoint it to one. It's like, it's the compilation of all these
Yeah.
different things: the inadequacy, the self-worth, the low self-esteem, the lack of self-confidence, all these abandonment, rejection wounds. All of these things all tie into the need to drink.
Mm-hmm.
And by healing all of the wounding and dissolving that energy, there's just no desire now to drink. Like, I still get, when we were home in England this past winter, I saw somebody pouring a beer, and I felt my mind go, and I felt the dopamine hit, get released as I watched the bartender pour this beer. And it was like, oh man, I know how good that tastes. And it was, what I realized in that moment, it was more than that. It was, and I know what feeling is associated to that taste. Now, what happened to me when I was 26 is the dark night of the soul, 26, 27, the dark night of the soul came upon my experience here in life. And alcohol, through this awakening process, suddenly didn't feel as good as it once
Didn't
did.
hit.
And it stopped working for me. It stopped being that thing that just took the edge off. And I can look back now and I know that this was to elevate me to a place to let go of this coping mechanism and to really feel my shit. Because where it had led me is into this dark hole. And it wasn't that in my mid-20s I had become like heavily addicted. And I know that is the case for some people out there. And if that is you, please reach out to get the necessary help from whoever. Go to AA or come see us at MSU and we can help you work through this. Do whatever you can. But for me, the challenge that I was going through was, it would be like I would be resisting drinking, and then I would drink and it would just go, like, it would spiral down. And then I would have this like insane dissociation. Like, I was so out of my body. And then when I would drink, I would feel the toxicity going in, and it was awful. And it really led me away from wanting to drink. But when I did drink during this period, it was always like, I know, actually my whole life, it was always like super hard all the way in. And that's because I understand now these energies that have been running my life have been swinging on this pendulum, going from everything to nothing. So when I would drink, it was like there was no stop. It was just go, 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 go. And that always led me to getting really blacked out.
Yeah.
Really drunk.
And not to mention, you haven't talked about the fact that your career was as a bartender for so long.
Yeah, that's a whole other part of the equation.
Right.
So
yeah,
because alcohol, when I was young, it became this way that I was cool because I was drinking. And it was a way that I could meet people and make friends. I loved alcohol. I really did. I truly loved it. I loved the social aspect of it. I loved what it made me feel. It was fun. It got me out of my shell. And so I naturally gravitated towards becoming a bartender. I was a bartender from 18 all the way up to this last year. So
29.
29, yeah.
Yep.
So for 11 plus years.
Yep.
11 plus years, I was behind a bar at some stage, serving drinks, and I worked in luxury hospitality, Ritz-Carlton, Park Hyatt, Marriott hotels, all this kind of stuff. It wasn't just like slinging drinks at the local place. It was high-end stuff. But it was hard being constantly around this substance that the more that I awakened, I could see the effect that it was having on me, I could see the effect that it was having on others. And it eventually got to last year where it was like, I could not be part of this thing, this organism, which is convincing people that they need to continuously drink this substance and give away their power and cause arguments. Like, a couple drinks is one thing, but as a bartender, you can always see when someone just goes over that edge.
Yeah.
And then something takes over.
Oh my God. I used to date somebody who had so much pain, so much unhealed trauma. And he would use drinking as a way to just escape and not feel anything. And I would always witness the moment where it felt like his soul just left his body and he was taken over by something. Like, you know, when you look into someone's eyes and they're just gone, like nobody's home, that to me is like when you hit that point and you keep hitting that point, it's a cry for help that they won't ever say, which is why they stay in the cycle of being addicted to this stuff. It's really scary.
And when I was not on the kind of like the healing path and a bartender, I would just find it funny. I go, oh, the
Oh,
guy's had
yeah.
too much alcohol,
Right.
doesn't know his limits. That's me, that'll be me tomorrow night. And like,
So many jokes.
yeah, it's like you just laugh about it and it's funny. And then the more that you heal and awaken, you start to see the desperation in this
Yeah.
soul, that they're so lost and they're in so much pain that they have to drink constantly in order to find some level of joy, peace, or happiness.
Ugh,
And it's never lasting, it's never sustaining because it's not from within.
yeah.
And I started really seeing that. And then it was becoming really difficult because this had been my career. This was the way that I made my living. And I needed the money to survive and to pay for the classes that I was doing through Masters of Self University and to pay for my life.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was moving through the program, I was like, I can't be part of this anymore. It had been raising my level of consciousness to a place that I literally, it was like really difficult to go in and do that work, knowing that I'm contributing towards, I'm not causing direct harm, but I'm indirectly harming them by allowing them, everybody, to drink
Mm,
alcohol because I understand the consequences of what it has in the like energetic space, what it does to the psyche and why people are doing it. And I know that because I've lived it. I understand it from my own experience, and I know what it means to start to elevate beyond that and what your life can feel like and
yeah.
how amazing it can be when you finally get to a place of power of not wanting a substance to make you okay, just
Yeah.
take the stress off,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, I can only relate to this through marijuana. I mean, I was smoking every day, every night. It was the one thing that I looked forward to
Yeah.
because it was a way for me to just escape from everything, to just like not feel what I was constantly feeling, which was like this deep sadness, deep loneliness. And then I got to a point where, as I was doing this work, I smoked and it was my body just went no more. And it just never, since that day, it has never been the same to the point where I was like, I have to let this go
Mhm.
because where I'm going, this cannot come with me. And so, I think witnessing your journey, I've never seen anyone in my life go from I drink a lot to I don't drink anymore. Never. I've never witnessed it. And to see your last drink, I think, was in the towards the end of December, like December 20th of 2022. You had literally like a quarter of a beer, and I have not seen you touch a lick of liquor since then. And talk a little bit about like what it did to your body when you even drank a little bit, because
Mm.
you hated it.
Yeah, I would take a sip. Even when I was bartending, like all last year, I would take a sip and I could feel it blur my consciousness and bring me down. Like I could feel it. Alcohol is a depressant. I know everyone's going to say tequila's an upper. Yeah, tequila. It's all a depressant. It's going to bring you down. And when you put that in your body and you've elevated to a level where instead of it making you feel like it opens you up, you're now at a level where you have to bring yourself down to be at the same level of consciousness as the whatever it is that alcohol is making you experience, right? So when I would just take a sip of it, it was like bringing me down. And
Mm,
then it gets to a point, it's like, why do I want to be down?
yeah.
It used to make me come up.
Right.
And it used to, like, I would have a drink and I would feel more like me.
Hmm.
And it got to a point, it was through the dark night of the soul, like it was through my 26, 27, that period. alcohol. It was one day I drank way too much. I partied way too hard. It was the day, it's October 24th, 2018. It was the day a fragment of my soul left, which I have retrieved. We have done a podcast on this somewhere back in the early days. And that day, the next day when I woke up, everything had changed. Everything was gray and dark, and it was extreme severe depression, loads of anxiety. And since that day, every time that I've sipped alcohol, it's like I will come down a little bit. And for a while I had a lot of like PTSD. But since this last year, I've whatever like physical PTSD I would have with like sipping the alcohol and start freaking out that I was going back to this like depression, dark night like period. I've healed that, and I can drink alcohol without that kind of like nervous system response now. But what it does to my consciousness, it's gross. It makes me feel yucky and icky, and I don't enjoy it. And this last year has been a case of drinking a little, then not really enjoying the feeling, and then regretting it, and then having to heal whatever programs come up from the regret until I've done that enough times that now I just don't want to. It's that simple. It's not that I'm forcing myself to not drink. It's that I have no desire to want to drink. Why would I want to bring myself down a few notches in my level and like area of consciousness when I can just be perfectly free and happy and joyful without it? Why would I want to do that? I wouldn't. And so the answers that I found for this whole alcohol topic is heal your wounds, work on yourself.
Yeah. As you were saying all of that, it's like, I think, the deeper you go into yourself, right, you're starting to understand what it means to really love yourself, right? Because you show up for yourself and you realize how much you've abused yourself. And so now, even on my journey of marijuana, it's like when I get tempted by the idea of it, right? When I feel deeper into it, it's like, well, why are you reaching for that joint and why do you need it? And then it always brings me to this place of, Ellie, you love yourself enough now not to use this as a way to hurt yourself. And it gets to that place too, the deeper you go, because you're so aware of what you're running. What is the energy behind wanting this drink or wanting this blunt or wanting to take a hit from your bong? Like, what is the energy? And if you really sit in stillness with that, you'll see that like those are just ways that we avoid, ways that we numb, ways that we resist going into ourselves, because it's easier to escape than to be in the stillness and feel the uncomfortable feelings that come with the pain that is really trapped inside of you.
Yeah, and our minds really want to jump on and be like, so Ellie, you're never gonna smoke weed ever again, or Danny, you were never gonna have a sip. No, I'm probably gonna have another drink in my lifetime. I'm not saying, we're not out here saying, oh, this is now black and white. This is it. I've left that old thing. Like, no, if the situation calls upon it, and my soul is like, oh, I really am in the mood right now to have a beer with you, my friend, and whoever you are, and connect with you through this IPA or this glass of wine. But what I found now is the energy that I come from, even in this last year, the energy that I come from is like not this place of I gotta get fucked up and I gotta like, it's like, oh, let me just have one or two and enjoy myself, and let me really enjoy the experience. Whereas in the past, it was just about getting drunk. And for you, was it about getting high?
Oh yeah, I love getting high. I loved who I was when I was high. I was like social and I was outgoing and I was comfortable and I wasn't in my head and I wasn't awkward and all of these things. And so I used it as a way to connect with people. I used it as a way to be accepted. I used it as a way to just feel like I was like everybody else. And then I realized, like, man, Ellie, it's because there's so much wounding here is the reason why you constantly need to smoke before you do anything. Like, I would freak out if I didn't take a hit of my pen before I met up with somebody. Like, I would freak out. I'd be like, there was one time where I lost my weed pen and I was an hour late to meeting up with somebody because I had to go retrace it. And I realized I left it at a cafe that was like 15 minutes walking distance from my house, and I was late to this meeting because I went to go find the pen, and then when I found it, the joy I had, it's so sad. And then I smoked it, and I was like, now I'm ready. And it's like,
now I found my power.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, when I think back, it's like so sad because I was so powerless. I needed this thing to make me feel something, like I was somebody, like I was powerful enough to show that look how great I am and funny I am and cool I am to be around. And it's like, Ellie, you don't need any of those things. And that's really going to the inner child that just wants to be accepted and loved, you know?
What's your Chiron in?
Chiron, for those of you guys who don't know, astrologically, that means the wound within. It's in Gemini.
Which is what?
Like having a closed throat chakra.
Keep going.
Oh, that's what it is. It's my wound in this life is not being able to really speak up and not really being able to like express myself.
And when you would smoke weed.
Oh my God, I was the best. Yeah. I would walk into a party and I would be everybody's friend. I could talk to anybody and everybody loved me. And I was just like, I would call it Ellie 2.0. Yeah. I'd be like, this is Ellie 2.0, here, all this stuff. And now it's like when I smoke weed, I'm like Ellie negative 3,000. Like it's just not, I've surpassed it on a conscious level. And so it just makes me feel like shit. And I'm like, why would I go back to living in a shack when I've like touched what it's like living in a mansion? So yeah, I mean, but it has been a journey, and it doesn't mean that once in a while I don't want to smoke the weed. I just can't do it the way that I could. But now it's not like, let me escape from myself. Now it's like, oh, we're having a chill night. Like, let me like take a half a puff. And it never really even does anything for me anymore. So it's like that whole era in my life came and has gone. Yeah. And like, I really don't miss it because like I enjoyed it while it was there. And now I'm in a place where like I'm evolving, and that is powerful.
Yeah. Super powerful.
Yeah.
My Chiron's in Leo, and that is all about like being the star, right?
Yeah. Being seen.
And so something that like alcohol always made me do was like, I would be so like bubbly, and I would always feel like when I was drinking around friends, I would have to be the star. I would have to be somebody more than who I am. It would make me like Danny 2.0. I've literally used that verbiage, Danny 2.0, except it wasn't about when I was drinking. It was a period in my life, so it's funny that you say that. But
and it's in your house of community and friends. Your wound is.
Oh, okay.
So that's probably why.
Yeah, and it really, when I would drink, I really would try and be the star. And I felt like I had to be the star because people needed me to be the star. Because if I was the star, I would be loved and I would be seen and I would get the attention. Yeah, I would be accepted, get the attention that I ultimately didn't feel like I got as a child.
Right.
And this is what it comes down to is that feeling of emptiness in my childhood led me to making certain behaviors and choices as a growing adult, as a maturing teen.
Yeah.
And ultimately learning to heal that part of me that wants to be the star. It's still an ongoing process. It comes out all the time. Just let that energy out and let it be what it is and come back to my heart. Find groundedness there, because that need to be a star, to be loved and to be seen, I have to learn to find that from within myself.
Yeah.
And if I don't, then I'm not living this work that I so desperately love. And that's not what I'm here to do.
Yeah. And, you know, the whole drinking thing too, yes, it's societal. Yes, it's cultural. You know, we see it in the TV, movies, advertisements everywhere. There's a bar in every corner, in every town, everywhere. But it could also be something that you witness your parents do.
Yeah.
You know, as a way for them to escape themselves, as a way for them to avoid. And then, of course, you know, there are caregivers, so we absorb all those things. So I've seen a lot of that too, of like people turn to alcohol in the way their father drank and the way that their mother drank, you know? So it's like, take a deep look into where this really stems from and why it's a problem. So what I would love for you to go into, Danny, a little bit for anybody at home who's like, okay, great. Yeah, I do have a drinking problem and I do want to heal. And can you walk a little bit of the listeners into the programs that you ran and that you did ultimately heal, that now you don't ever, you literally never, like once in a while you go, oh man, a cold beer, but it's like just a thought that passes and you actually never do anything about it, which is just like so admirable in so many ways. But like, can you talk a little bit about the programs that you did run and that you did ultimately heal and how you healed it?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned earlier, it's a combination of all of them. So we really want this black and white, easy fix answer and be like, oh, alcohol stems from this wound. And if you heal this wound, you won't drink. It's not how it works. It's super complicated. And it's all, if the best way to heal this all is to go in and just heal all of the programs and wounds. And this is what we do at MSU. It's a systematic approach that deals with everything. Once you go out and you heal everything and you're working on raising your entire level of consciousness, instead of just looking for one wound, let's look for all of them and let's heal the whole thing. And then from there won't be energy that is in that place of neediness. It's basically every disempowering energy is going to drive you towards some kind of addictive behavior because you're looking for that power outside of yourself. And this is what we get taught. This is what our parents taught us. It's no disrespect to them. It's just because this is what they were taught. That's all that it is. And we're here to say, you don't need to do that anymore. Here are the tools, follow us, and we can teach you the steps to integrate this work. Figure out your triggers, your programs, what your inner child wounds are, heal the energy, and you will evolve as a soul and you won't need to use these things anymore. So I love your question, but it's not black and white.
Yeah.
It's complex, and every single person is going to have a very unique experience with how these programs manifested into drinking.
Yeah.
And that's what we deal with. We customize all of this work, although it is a program, to each individual client. Now, for me, one of the things that continues to come up is when I was walking our new dog the other day, who is an absolute handful, but the love of my life. When he is getting so excited and I'm doing my best to calm him down through my energy, through training, and I feel his energy and it's stressing me out. All my control programs are freaking out. All of a sudden, I feel the thought starts coming in my mind. A beer right now would be great.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, one of the big things is when I feel an emotion that I don't want to feel,
Mm-hmm.
when I feel any level of stress, when I'm resisting feeling that, which is all stemming from some level of powerlessness, then I gravitate towards alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And in the past, this thought pattern was so unconscious to me, I didn't realize it was happening. I would move through the day and I would start having these thoughts and be like, well, I guess I want to go have a drink. Actually, what's happening is there's some kind of energy being activated in me. I don't know how to process it because I was never taught how to process emotions healthily through my heart. And I'm having the thought, I want to go have a drink. And then I'm following that thought, thinking that this thought is coming from me.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, the thought is a manifestation of the energy of powerlessness that I'm experiencing at that moment because I don't know how to deal with the stress that I'm having.
Mm-hmm.
So the way you combat that is to learn to process the emotions that you have in your body.
Mm-hmm.
You learn to become more aware of your thoughts. So when you're having this thought, oh, I want to have a drink, in the past, I would just go down that road. Now I go, it's interesting. I'm having that thought. What energy is that thought coming from? I then drop in and I start to feel, and this is everything that we teach. I start to feel and start translating the energy. Now I'm using words to describe something that happens internally. So it's always going to sound silly and butcher it in some way. But this is what we teach. You go within, you find the energy of where the thought's coming from. And in most cases for me, it's just like, oh, I'm feeling super stressed right now because I don't know how to handle what's coming up. There's a lot of frustration for me frustration that I was never taught this as a kid. I was never taught how to handle my emotions, how to process emotion in a healthy way.
None of us were.
None of us were.
Yeah.
And the answer is suppress it down and have a coping mechanism.
Right.
And for me, that coping mechanism was a beer, was a glass of alcohol in some kind of way. And yeah, that's like a breakdown of what still happens in my mind, in my body. It still happens now, but the weight in which that thought comes up is so minuscule because I've healed so much of the energy. And there will be a day that those thoughts never arise.
Right.
Because I will have cleared out all that survival energy, all that powerlessness, all the need. There's another big wound I had with needing to be accepted, which stemmed from parents, like this feeling that I always had that one of my parents didn't like always love me, and that there was some level of like resentment and hate there, which I've got to the bottom to, which I won't go into in this podcast. But yeah, like there was definitely some level of like not being fully accepted as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing of not feeling a lot of shame for my sensitivities as a very highly sensitive child. And when I would drink, I wouldn't have to worry and feel the sensitivities. I wouldn't have to feel the emotions that were tied to them. And yeah, the sensitivities thing, we've not touched on that. I want to talk about that for a sec. I didn't realize, excuse me, I didn't realize that I would really feel people when I was in a room with them or spending time with them. I always knew I was a very feeling being, but I didn't realize to what extent. And that was why I would get so much social anxiety. Now, social anxiety in general is some level of resistance. I don't want to feel what it is that's coming up. I don't have the power to deal with this. So I'm going to continue to resist this and worry and panic and get overwhelmed about what it is I'm experiencing. Right? That's my understanding and experience of anxiety. So we avoid it, we resist feeling what it is. Really, what's happening in that situation for me, like in a social setting, is I'm feeling their stuff and I'm feeling my stuff. I'm feeling all of my programs of not being enough, of the shame for who I am, of wanting to be accepted,
Mm-hmm.
of all the stress that brings up internally and all the energy that I would spend creating a false self and wearing a mask so people would like me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling all of that. And so when I would have a drink, it would all go away. The other thing I'm feeling is I'm literally, as a HSP, feeling other people's programs, feeling other people's wounds. And I had no idea I was doing this until I healed enough to really understand what my sensitivities are. And then when I would spend time with people not drinking, I would feel their shit. And I'd be like, oh my, like, I can't believe I've been feeling this my whole life. But as soon as I had a drink, that level of sensitivity and healing would just calm down.
Mm-hmm.
And we had an experience in Nashville recently, which is an interesting place. I'll just leave it at that. Where we were there with like a family trip, and it was really difficult to be in some of those bars. And what I had to do in that moment, because I wanted to spend time with my family, was have a few beers, because I couldn't bear to feel the energies of everyone else that were in that room. And because it was too much for me. I was like, this is way too much. If I was sober, I would have walked out. I would have completely left, because I love myself enough to not put myself in that position. And I'm sensitive enough to feel what it is that I'm absorbing from everybody. And so there is times where alcohol can be used in a divine way. And that was to have a few drinks to relax all my sensitivity so I could at least connect with my family, which I was wanting to do at that time.
I think that what the world teaches out there is to fix a behavior with a behavior, right? And so instead of what's the energy and let's go and heal that causes the behavior. And I remember in the summer we were walking along the beach and we bumped into this woman and she was telling us how she was 20 years sober. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then she goes, but I still have that voice in my head that tells me to go get a drink, to go get drunk. And then that's when I realized Like, it doesn't matter if you're 20 years sober if we haven't healed the energy that's creating the voice that tells you to keep going for the drink. While it's an amazing feat, you're still battling that demon, and that demon, that energy, is what is asking to be loved and seen by you and felt by you, right? Until that's healed, then you go 20 years and that voice never comes up because you healed it, you
There's
know?
two main ways that we can do this. It's by power or by force. And force is what I was stuck in about 4 years ago, of forcing myself to not drink because I was aware enough to know that it was bad for my body. I could feel the physical effects. I could feel the energy of it. I could see what it was doing to people, but I wasn't in my power. So I would force myself to not do it. And ultimately, forcing can often is going to lead to some point failure,
Yeah.
because you can only push for so long. You can only push. Eventually, you're going to have to like give up a second and take a breather and stop using all that energy to push and resist. Power, on the other hand, is a completely different energy. Finding your power means I don't need anything outside of myself. I am completely secure, content, and happy from within here. And I don't need to spend all this time stopping myself to do something, or forcing myself to not drink, or forcing myself to do another behavior,
Yeah.
because I am within my power right now.
Yeah. And it takes willingness and devotion every single day to go into yourself.
Mhm.
You know, this doesn't isn't just like literally a magic pill. It's like, okay, I'm healed now. It's like, no, it's gonna require you to show up constantly for yourself, especially for those, who are really relying on these substances to get you by on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis. Yeah.
And that's not to say that sometimes it's not necessary to force. Again, here's the ego wanting to paint black or white. So, oh, it's either this or it's this. Its power is obviously always going to be better. We want to get to power because it's more an elevated power. Love is power. Power is love. It's more an elevated way of being. Sometimes, as you're healing, it is necessary to force, because if you want to achieve something, you might need to force yourself to not do it just for a little period. But understand that that forcing to not do it is a temporary solution while you're doing the deep inner work,
Mm-hmm.
while you're going within and finding your power. And if anyone's out there that really wants to understand what this means, please jump on to a free consultation. We have a sea of mystical life coaches that would love to work and help with anyone that can help with this specific problem, or a host of other stuff out there. So if you've got any interest, just jump on a consultation and we can talk about what that would look like for you. And if you're out there struggling with alcohol, like, I've been there and I get it. And that stuff runs deep through our entire society, and it's really hard. And we haven't even got into the when you don't drink, you're excluded and not normal.
Mm-hmm.
You're sidelined, which then, well, let's go there just for a second. Because then when you stop drinking, you then lose all of the friends that you had, because the only place that they want to hang out is in the bars.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to ask yourself, were they really my friends in the first place? If the only time that they want to hang out with me is when they're drunk and I'm drunk, are they really my friends?
Yeah.
Are we really connecting? Is there a deep level of connection going on when all they're doing, all we're connecting through is a substance that gets us away from ourselves? I don't think so.
Mm. Yeah, and that's a question for everyone that's going to be on the journey of really healing all of these energies that create, why you want to drink in the first place, and then it goes into the level of, are these really my friends? And that's a whole other level as you walk into this. But for those of you who are like, I don't want to lose my friends like that, it's like you're going to get to a place where you're going to want real connection and depth with people. And when you say goodbye to certain people, you create space for others to come in. They're going to meet you where you're at. And it's a beautiful, this whole life is this beautiful dance of death and rebirth and death and rebirth. And it's not resisting what is, but being acceptance and surrender, that, you know, you will constantly evolve and there will be goodbyes, but it doesn't mean there won't be new hellos. And just being in surrender of all that allows you to experience this beautiful thing we call life without the attachment and the need and all of these things. So, for those of you out there who want to work with Danny, especially on this or any of our mystical life coaches, visit us at Master Self University. We also have a monthly membership. We do 2 lives every month. You can join that on the site as well. And also a free Discord community. All right, join that. That'll be in the description below. And like, share, subscribe, comment. Thank you so much, guys, for being here with us. And until next time, we will see you guys then.
Bye.
Bye.